your campaign this time around, if foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening. If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your opponent. Oh, I think I'd want to hear it.
Do you want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it.
It's amazing. Happened tonight. New comments this evening from the President of the United States on his willingness to accept election assistance from a foreign country. I'm joined now by someone who could suffer the consequences of foreigners helping the president. Senator Kamala Harris joins me. Senator, thank you so much. These are some pretty stunning comments from the president. What's your reaction?
Well, Stephanie, listen, he's the commander-in-chief and has a duty and a responsibility to the American people to be a defender, if not the greatest defender of our democracy. But to quite the contrary, what we hear tonight is that he is yet again open to the idea of working with foreign governments to undermine the integrity of our election system. It's outrageous, and it tells me the guy just doesn't understand the job and can't do it very well.
But you could be in a position running against the president where he's now welcoming foreign interference. Are you concerned? Do you feel like your campaign is secure?
I am very concerned, Stephanie. I am a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. On a regular basis, we receive classified information about the threats to our national security. There are public reports about the fact that Russia interfered in the election of the President of the United States in 2016. We have heard even most recently from Christopher Wray of the FBI that this is an ongoing threat and something we should be concerned about in 2020. I am a leader on a bipartisan bill in the United States Senate to upgrade the security of our elections infrastructure. And yes, I am concerned for all of those reasons. And the American public should be concerned. And most of all, the President of the United States should be concerned.
But he's not.
Yet again, because you know why, Stephanie, yet again, this president is putting his self-interest in front of the interest of our democracy and the integrity of our democracy and the American people's confidence in the security and the integrity of our election system, which is one of the strongest and most important pillars of our democracy, which gives us a role of leadership around the world. But this president, for self-interest, clearly is willing to compromise one of the components that gives us some of the greatest strength we have when we walk into rooms around the world, because people respect that we fight for our democracy even so.
Being outraged isn't new. People across the country, including yourself, have been outraged for the last 2 years. Your colleague Hakeem Jeffries said earlier tonight that Democrats should stay the course. The president's admission doesn't change anything, and it's not time to move toward impeachment yet. What do you think?
Well, listen, you know, I was raised by a mother who was all of 5 feet tall, but if you ever met my mother, you would have thought she was 7 feet tall, and she was the kind of parent who, if you ever came home complaining about something, the first thing she'd do is she'd look at you and she'd say, well, what are you going to do about it? Well, I decided to run for president of the United States. That's how I'm translating my outrage.
Well, you're running for president of the United States, so you're going to potentially see the president at the ballot box, but you're currently a sitting senator. Correct. Given your current role, what are you doing about it?
Well, we have this election security bill that, unfortunately, the leader on the Senate side will not put on the floor for a vote. And I think it's important that all Americans, regardless of their party affiliation, fight for the United States Congress to do its job and upgrade the elections infrastructure and secure the elections infrastructure in our country. And so I'm proud to have been a leader and to be a leader in the United States Senate on that issue, because there is nothing more important than fighting for the integrity of our democracy and our election system, regardless of your party affiliation, regardless of whether you're running for office or not.
You can't get anything done because you're being roadblocked by the opposite party. Joe Biden was criticized earlier this week because he said he looks forward, if elected, to working with Republicans again in a post-Trump world. He got a lot of criticism for that, but people around the country want a government that works. So what will you do in that position?
Well, I'm proud to be a part of a number of pieces of, I think, very important public policy initiatives that are bipartisan. I enjoy working with people across the aisle when we can find common ground, and I've seen examples where that can happen. But where there is obstruction, where there is a failure to act based on partisan perspective, then as President of the United States, I'm prepared to take executive action, Stephanie. So, for example, I am prepared to take executive action on reasonable gun safety laws in this country, because for decades now we've been debating this issue, and there's been no movement in the United States Congress, mostly because of partisan divide. And so, as president, I will take executive action. I'll take executive action on an issue like equal pay, because since 1963 we have been talking about this when we passed the Equal Pay Act, but yet today women in America are making 80 cents on the dollar, black women 61 cents on the dollar, Native American women 58, and Latinas 53 cents. I'll take executive action to move this forward if necessary, but put in place a policy that gets us where we need to go. I'm prepared to take executive action on the issue of what we need to do around the abortion laws that are being passed in states like Alabama, which, when they are clearly from a state that has a history of denying a woman access to reproductive health that she wants and that she should have a choice in making, I am prepared to run a Department of Justice that says that we will review those laws for their constitutionality, and if they don't pass constitutional muster, they cannot be implemented.
Senator, I want to dig into some of these topics more, but first, I
Sure.
want to turn to some comments you made about prosecuting the president. Let's take a listen.
Sure.
If you become president, if he was never impeached, would you want the Department of Justice, now that he is no longer a sitting president, to go forward with those obstruction of justice charges?
I believe that they would have no choice and that they should, yes. There has to be accountability. I mean, look, people might, question why I became a prosecutor. Well, I'll tell you, one of the reasons I believe there should be accountability. Everyone should be held accountable, and the president is not above the law.
As a former prosecutor, what makes you so sure the president should be charged?
Well, what I believe is that everyone should do the job that they are charged with doing, of pursuing the evidence and the facts and taking it where they lead. And I have read the Mueller report. There are at least 10 clearly outlined incidents of obstruction of justice. I believe that we should take Bob Mueller at his word. My interpretation of what he told us both in his written report and in his press conference is that the reason that there was not an indictment returned against this president is because of a DOJ memo which says that a sitting president cannot be indicted. But absolutely, we should want and have checks and balances. And the Department of Justice, after this president is no longer in office, I would assume that they're going to take a look at it and take it where the facts may lead them.
Do you believe Robert Mueller got the job done? It is a detailed report. As you said, you've read it, I've read it, but there's a lot of confusion out there and public fatigue.
Well, I think that there was a very comprehensive and in-depth investigation that was conducted over 2 years and produced what we are aware of, which is at least 10 counts of obstruction of justice. And Stephanie, let's not forget that over 1,000 former members of the United States Department of Justice, bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats, have said that they believe that there is a crime that has occurred. So that is a fact. And when we talk about fatigue, listen, I'm traveling the country and people are feeling an incredible amount of distrust in our government and its institutions and leaders. And when we have a president of the United States who has very possibly engaged in obstruction of justice and then just today says that he would receive information from a foreign and potentially hostile government in a way that would interfere with the election of the president of the United States, I think that the American public is right to feel fatigued in terms of comparing what they would hope and expect would be the posture of the president of the United States against the conduct and the display that we have recently seen from this president.
Then do you believe Nancy Pelosi is doing enough? Just today, Trump's legal team argued in court that Congress can't even investigate a sitting president.
Listen, I have a great deal of respect for Nancy Pelosi, and I absolutely believe that when we look at the Bob Mueller report, I've said how I feel about it, and I think that when we talk about the conduct of this president, including that interview today with George Stephanopoulos, it's sending a signal. The conduct of this president is sending a signal to our adversaries around the world, and fill in the blank, North Korea, Russia, fill in the blank. He's sending a signal to them, hey, come on in for 2020.
Well, he sent it to WikiLeaks, and they responded. It worked out.
He sent what to WikiLeaks?
He sent that same thing to WikiLeaks back in 2016.
That's
he
right.
said, Russia, are you listening?
That's
and
right.
they responded, and here we are.
That's right.
All right, please stay with us. You and I have a lot more to cover.
Okay.
There was another shocking headline from the Trump administration about how they are handling what is happening at the southern border. Senator, I know you have a new plan to help Dreamers. I want to ask you about that. Please
Okay,
stay with
thank
us.
you.
We got a lot more to cover.
Will do.
You're watching All In.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.